What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Kickin with Kachi, where we highlight individuals that are taking the industry by storm. And today we have a very, very special guest. We are honored, pleased, and blessed to sit down with Maya Reese, who is doing a multitude of things, but currently is a leading premier broadcaster in sports. So thank you so much for sitting down with us and kicking it with me today.
No, thank you for that intro. I've never been introduced like that. I like it.
Hey, well, now I'm glad. Hopefully, I set a standard for future interviews that you do for people to set you up like that. So, first thing I do want to do is take a blast to the past, essentially, because I feel like it's very important to, highlight the work that you've done leading up to this moment in time of who you are, right? So, just to read off your resume real quick of internships and connections that you made during high school and college. Shout out Howard U, one for one. NBC, right? BET, Fox, Complex, all of these different organizations. What was it like stepping into these places, applying for these internships, and sort of getting your feet wet, one, at a very young age, and two, at crossroads where maybe you wouldn't feel comfortable going in there as the only colored person, the only woman in the room?
Yeah, for sure. I would say for me, I've always noticed that I'm the only Black woman in the room most of the time, usually one of the only people of color in the room, also usually one of the only women. But I try not to lead with that just because that's like, I am a person first. So I try not to pay attention to like, oh, there's no Black people in here, I have to discuss Black History Month. Like I try not to overdo it. But at the same time, I'm going to raise my hand as a Howard grad and say like, hey guys, like February's coming up. Do we have content planned? What's going on? Yada, yada, yada. So it's like you have to learn how to balance paying attention, but not like overemphasizing, I would say. But yes, my first internship was in high school, my senior year. It was at Fox Chicago here. But we had to have an internship, like every single senior had to have one. But I would say that helped me because at Howard, I interned every semester.
Right.
Every single semester, I had a new internship, always grinding, always trying to do something. I would say the thing about interning is like, it is at the end of the day, it's very time consuming. So I wasn't a huge like socialite person because, okay, I have class from this time and then I got to go to work. My first internship in DC, it was at the local ABC7 station, and it was like an hour and a half away. I didn't have a car because I was like maybe a freshman or sophomore, so I had to take the train. It was unpaid. So I was like, Mom, can I borrow $100 to go to work this week? And she would be like, okay. Then the next week, hey, Dad, can I borrow money for, like, I was always just borrowing money from my parents because it wasn't paying me.
Right.
That being like my first one in DC, I would say that it set me up so that way, once it was time to apply for the next one, I was only applying to paid ones after that because I'm like, I'm not about to do this again.
Right, exactly.
Once it was time to apply, it's like, oh, well, I just did this last semester. Here are the skills that I learned, the connections that I made. Here's how I can be an asset to you. And then the ball just started rolling. So every single semester, I would just apply, whether it was entertainment or sports or hard news. Like I worked at Fox.
Right.
That was hard because I didn't believe the views that my show was talking about. But at the end of the day, it's like, that's your job. And so I took it as, okay, this is going to be hard. This is going to be a challenge, but I want to learn and I want to know how to do news and not be biased, but like that year, there was someone else my year. She was like, oh my God, I hate this. Like, Maya, how do you do this? She was at Fox with me. She hated it. But I'm like, at the end of the day, you have to be able to separate who you are from who your job is. So I can go on and say like, hey, this president did these things. And then we're discussing it. I might go home and be like, oh my God, Mom, President so-and-so did this, and that. I hate it. But at work, I'm like, oh, this is the best president ever. Like you have to sometimes be able to separate yourself from your job.
And I would say like you've touched on it a little bit already. You've dabbled in a bunch of different on-camera entities. You've done hard news, right? You've done the local news. You've done the weather, right? You've done sports. You've done entertainment, right? So what sort of pushed you into a certain direction where you're like, okay, I really want to do this? Or were a collection of all these experiences together allowing you to say, hey, I don't want to do hard news anymore because I've done that already. Or I don't want to do the weather anymore because I've done that already. Or the local news or things like that. As though there's sort of things or having the experience of saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Is that what sort of happened to push you towards different things?
No, to be honest, this answer is going to sound very cliche, but I genuinely think that it's God, for real. And I say that because at one point there was a time where I really wanted to do entertainment. And so I was like applying. I had an interview with NBC Entertainment to go to LA and do E-News. I was like, this is what I want to do. But at the time, I'm like, you know what? Let me just apply to other places just in case. And so I had the E-News interview. I was so nervous. I was like stumbling over my words. And it was like the worst thing ever. But I had an NBC Sports interview and I was just chill. Like, yeah, I'm from Chicago. I love the Bulls. The Bears are okay. The White Sox are cool. Like, I was more calm, relaxed. And then I got the sports job instead of the job. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll do that. But then that sports job ended up being a fellowship where NBC paid for me to live in New York. Like, they paid for me to commute to work every day. And it ended up being even better because then the next semester, NBC Sports headquarters was like, hey, you can continue on at the local DC office. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it turned into another job when I didn't think sports was the way to go. And so God is always pushing me like, hey, you should go this way. You should go that way.
Right.
So even when I was in local news, I was like, okay, I want to get out. I'm trying to see like what sort of jobs do I want? And I applied to a couple of sports jobs. Then I got the Olympics.
Right. We're going to talk about the Olympics too, because that's a very, very exciting time as well. Very exciting time as well. So before we get into that though, one, I really do love the idea that you brought up of I don't even know what to call it. I guess they call it divine intervention in a way. That's what my grandma calls it. Of essentially you feel like your route is going in a specific way. Like you were, if I'm not mistaken, studying broadcast journalism at Howard, right? So you probably had the idea of being on the news, being an anchor, and that being the end all be all, just moving up in that industry, right? Essentially, but then moving into sports, right? So was there sort of like a learning curve coming into entertainment and then going into sports that you sort of had to learn, overcome to be good in those fields?
That's a good question. I think for me, I always knew that my path was different from a lot of my peers. So like when I was at Howard, a lot of people said like, oh, I want to go to this local news route, local stations and do that. I always said, and you can ask like my classmate, my teacher, I always said, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do local news. I'll do it because they say that's the way to become a superstar. You have to do local news and then like a small market, then a small market, and then a medium market, and another medium market, and then like a semi-large. Like you have to go down that whole route. But I would say for me, I consume news on my phone.
Right.
What I do. So I want to work for places where we're telling them the news on their phone or on their computer. I don't watch TV anymore. So I don't want to work for TV. But my professors are like, no, you got to try it. You got to do it just to see like this is the route that always works. And so I went the local news route, did that. But then I'm like, yeah, this isn't it. Like I didn't want to be a local news person because I like entertainment. Like you said, I like entertainment.
Really, yeah.
Sports, like I like music. You can't really do a lot of that at a local news market. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, essentially, I just knew that I wanted to be in digital media. So I would say that I was never behind or nervous going into local news though, because it's like I can do a lot of stuff. I should start with it.
Well, evidently, yes, we know, but yeah.
But no, I'm saying like at the end of the day, if I need to, I can go get a job as a producer, as a writer, as an editor, as the on camera, as behind the scenes. Like I can do all of that. And so one thing that I've always tried to do is like each internship was something different. So that time to find a job, it's like, okay, I didn't put myself in a box and do three editorial internships. I might have done the editorial, but then I did production as well, or social media, like always trying to be knowledgeable of different things. So that way, if I go right now, and if I'm like, oh, you know what, I want to go work for the Weather Channel and I want to do like their Apple News notifications, I would do something random like that just so I can take the skills from it to then now go to my next job and be like, hey, I want to work at Bleacher Report doing push notifications, like everything.
Right.
Skills. So I would just make sure that I was doing different things that all fall under the umbrella of media. So that way, wherever I go, I can be an asset in some way, shape, or form, depending on what jobs they have open.
No, and that's great. And like I said, I love the idea of keeping your knapsack full, right? Keeping your social capital full of, like you're saying, these internships of all these different varying skills and all these jobs, which then leads you to the Olympics, right? This Olympics, and probably one of the most watched Olympics in human history, given that it was, right, you have the numbers, right, right. Because of the pandemic, right? And coming into that, and like you said, digital media, a lot of the consumption of our Olympics being digital, a lot of the on-site work there being online and stuff like that. So what was your experience getting this opportunity to cover the Tokyo Olympics? And spoiler alert for all those that are watching right now, getting an Emmy from it, right? So what's the experience in going into it, working in there, and then seeing your work finally recognized? Well, not finally recognized, because this is like your fourth award, but Emmy wise, being recognized for something that is new, foreign, but also monumental and historical.
For sure. Yeah, the Olympics, to be honest, it kind of caught me off guard, just because at the time I was working at a local news station and I was looking for my next full-time job. Like, hey, my contract is ending in maybe 6 months, so let me try to find a full-time job. The Olympics is a very short window, like it's like 3 weeks. So realistically, I didn't even need to apply because I need a real job. But I was like, you know what, the Olympics is coming up. I love sports. I've worked at NBC Sports twice now. So let me just go ahead, like submit this application. And I applied. I didn't hear back literally for like maybe 8 or 9 months, because the Olympics pushed back a whole year because of COVID. Yeah. So I forgot I applied, wasn't even thinking about it because I just didn't hear anything. And then I got an email like, hey, Maya, are you still interested? The Olympics is in 2 months and we would love to have you like to interview. I'm like, okay, sure. So I just did the interview process, and then they're like, hey, you got it. I was like, oh snap. Like I just wasn't expecting it. So I told my job, hey, I'm sorry, I have to leave early because I just got the Olympics.
Right.
Hey, well, I wish you the best. And I'm like, this is the best. So thanks. So I went and did the Olympics. The whole experience was crazy. Since it was COVID, I chose to stay home because I didn't want to go overseas. So I was working from home, and it was the like overnight shift because we're obviously in a different time zone.
Right, yeah.
So I would work from like maybe 9 p.m. until like 7 or 8 a.m. like the whole overnight.
Yeah, like almost a 12-hour. Yeah.
Yeah, and it would be the next day in Tokyo. So I would just be having to like have my laptop, my work laptop, my TV, and then just watch all of these different games at the same time and telling them like, hey, I would love to get these highlights from this game and this from that game. Like, can you compile this so then I could do the write-up for the app, for the website, push notifications, all that. But it is the Summer Olympics. So it's not just, oh, I love basketball, I played volleyball, let's do that. It's like every event. So I had to do handball, like judo, jujitsu, surfing, like 3-on-3 basketball, beach volleyball, just the most random. I've never heard of handball.
Ever. Right.
So they sent us this long, almost like dictionary. And then I would go and like, look, okay, this is handball. Here's how you play. Here are some of the star athletes. Like, this guy was from 4 years ago. He's hoping to come back in another one. So then I'll have to learn storylines and all that. It was a lot. But it was really fun just because I had never been in an environment like that where it's like, you know, every single person is dedicated to their field because it's 4 a.m. You know, we all are working really hard. It's 3 a.m. We're up watching synchronized swimming. Your job. And so, yeah, that was really fun. And then a coworker of mine was like, you know, guys, we actually won an Emmy last time for the Rio Olympics. And they're like, oh, wait, like you won an Emmy or the whole group? He's like, no, I have an Emmy at my house. So hopefully we all do good and then we'll get one this round. As soon as he said that, I'm like, no, we're going to win. So I'm not going to say I started working harder because I was already working hard, but I'm like, no, I'm trying to get this Emmy.
Right.
So then I really like locked in. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, we're not gonna win it, but we can maybe get nominated.
Right.
And the time comes and they're like, hey, we're nominated. And I'm like, okay, that itself is enough to put on your resume to say,
right,
hey, I have an Emmy nomination. I worked the Olympics. Like that's like a way to start a conversation. And then one day I was at home scrolling on Twitter. I'm talking to my family. I think it was like a cousin's birthday or something. And then my friend texted me like, hey, Maya, is this your category?
Oh, wow.
She just sent me like a Twitter link and I clicked on it. And then it was like the Emmy for like outstanding event coverage, Olympics, blah, 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 blah. ABC Sports, Olympics won. And I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, Mom, wait, I'm not sure, guys, but I think no. And then I go and I like Google it and double check. And I'm like, guys, I just won an Emmy. And they're like, no. And I'm like, no, yeah. Like it was just a weird moment because it's like, I don't know if this is what happened. Nope, my friend texted me about it. And then we just started screaming and they're like, Maya won an Emmy. Like we just made up little songs, started freaking out. It was crazy. And then a couple months later, really like a year later, but it came in the mail.
Wow.
It says like Maya Reese, Emmy winner. Yeah.
You better than me. I would have been in the interview like this. Yeah, I just got an Emmy about 3 years ago. I would have had it on the plane everywhere. It would have been a church with it. If
it was here, I would have pulled it up for sure. It's not here. I keep it at my mom's house just because she's like the safest person, I guess. Like if it was at my house, I would have broken it somehow. Too much. But it like on the inside of my phone, you probably can't see, but it's like me holding my Emmy.
Nice.
So I can always remind myself. But yeah, that process was crazy. It was a lot of hard work. I was, of course, the only Black woman on my team. And then there was one Black guy. He also went to Howard.
Nice.
It was the two Black people were both Howard grads. So I was the only Black woman, one of two Black people, and then maybe one of maybe 8 girls. Like it was a good amount of girls there.
Right. And speaking to women, well, one, I want to ask, have you ever done sports before? Are you a former athlete? Or is this something that we need to dig up as well from the archives?
You could say that. I didn't play in college though, but I used to play soccer, basketball, and volleyball. I was really big on basketball though. Like my family is a basketball family.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I played basketball for a long time, but then when I got maybe freshman or sophomore year, one of my best friends is 6'5". I'm 5'11". So I'm tall, but I'm not her kind of tall.
Right.
So she came in, she was the center, but I was a center. So I would be trying to guard her, but you're 6
right.
taller than me. So it wasn't working. And my body, I don't sweat ever. She's a sweaty person. So I would be trying to guard her, sweat is dripping on me. I was like, yeah, I can't do this. So I just quit. I stopped playing basketball, and then I switched to volleyball, and I learned how to play volleyball at tryouts. And then they were like, okay, come on. I was like, okay. So then I just played volleyball all throughout high school. We got some city championships. It was fun. And then I did the dance team, but I don't know if people count that.
I definitely count dance as a sport. I was a cheerleader in high school, so I definitely count dancing as a sport, you know what I'm saying? But I asked because I noticed a lot of that competitive athleticism in your work. Like you said, oh, we can get an Emmy. We can get an Emmy? Oh, yeah, I'm locked in, right? Yeah. And they don't usually, unfortunately, in sports, in media, they don't usually think of women. Like you said, you're researching sports. You're learning about sports you never played or thought of before, right? They don't usually associate women with one, playing sports, and even further, knowing about sports to speak about these things, right? So and I feel like, fortunately enough, though, a lot of women are coming to the forefront and changing that narrative, like Jamel Hill, right? Taylor Rooks, Maya Reese, right? Angel Reese versus Clayton Clark being the biggest story in college sports right now, right? How does it feel to be part of this wave of Black women getting onto the court, getting onto the field, getting onto the podcast, on the broadcaster's table, and speaking about sports because y'all actually know about sports and not you know what I'm saying, getting pigeonholed or getting boxed in?
Yeah, it's bittersweet. I'll say that.
Right.
The goods is that it's like good and bad. The great part about it is I love for someone to be able to go and look at my work and learn something, you know, or to be able to see, like, you might look at me and be like, oh, what would she know? But it's like, I actually know a lot. Like, I might know more than you. I don't know, but I might know more than you. So I would say the good thing is that it's fun to be able to show, I would say, women, to show them like, hey, like, if I can do this, you can do this. But I would also say, just like the Howard element, when I was in college, they didn't care about sports journalism. And so I used to say, like, hey, can we visit Bleacher Report? And the professors would be like, no, I think we should just go to CBS.
Right.
Okay, but can we just stop by like ESPN for a little bit? They're like, no, we should go to Politico. And I'm like, I understand, because these are media companies that have been around forever. But if someone like me is interested in sports or is interested in entertainment, I want to be able to see those companies as well. And so they didn't really show that. And so now I would say it's good, because Howard students will reach out like, hey, I love the work you're doing. Like, what did you do here at Howard?
Right.
So I can try to get, you know, in the same sort of rooms that you're in. And can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? So I would say the best part is being able to like reach back and help other people, because I know what it's like to want to do something different. And then now my professors just finessed me, and now I'm in local news and I didn't want to do that. You know, so I would say that's the fun part of being able to show like Howard students, HBCU students, really just Black students in general, that they can do this too. Because if I can do it, anybody can do it. But the only bad part about that is like my job, which I'm sure you'll get to later, so I won't talk too much, but my job, since we have millions of followers, if we go and we might post me talking about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, and I'll be like, yeah, that was a crazy matchup and this happened, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes there are trolls in the comments. And
right.
They always have something to say. I don't read comments anymore though. I don't, because I don't care what you have to say. Like, I like my work. I like what I see. But the bad part is that there are going to be trolls who question your knowledge about sports, or question how you got the job, or say, oh, well, she only got the job because blah, 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 or she doesn't know what she's talking about. And that was frustrating at first. But the main thing is, like, I know who I am. So I know, like, there was a trivia segment I made, and it was like, I would have someone ask me a random question about sports. So like, who was the first woman to dunk or something, like,
right.
In the game. I wouldn't know the question beforehand. I wouldn't know the answer. And if I get it right, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm happy I got it right. The people in the comments would be like, no, they must have told her beforehand. There's
right. Trying to find any sort of hoops and tricks to try and discredit. When, why is it so unfathomable? Like, yeah, she's a woman and she knows a little basketball. Like, well, it's not crazy to think about.
Yeah, and so a lot of people think that just because they didn't know, oh, it has to be. There's no way she would know. So stuff like that, it can be frustrating, but you also just have to be like, who cares? Because at the end of the day, I know what I know. So you just gotta not care about what people say.
And I mean, you know, like, you have the job to back it up, essentially. Like, you now working at Overtime, one of the biggest media outlets in sports. I watch Overtime all the time with oh yeah, of course. I'm about to go play basketball after this interview. But I love Overtime. I love sports media, right? You're part of the biggest sports media campaigns in the world right now with Overtime, and your own podcast as Overtime Maya, going out and doing outreach work as well, local schools. What is that work like in, like, impacting people that, you know, look like you, have been behind you, but also impacting people that you didn't even know knew you, watched your content, listened to you, aside from the trolls and the negative comments, but also young men, young boys saying, wow, I watch you and listen to you about your sports takes and your sports media.
I still don't believe it. Like, just the moments that I've had with this job, they're so crazy to me. Like the example you're talking about, I was in the Bronx at like a small boys private Catholic school, And we just stopped by to ask them questions, like test their sports knowledge. And who do you think is like SGA or so-and-so and LeBron or Jimmy Bucket, like just random questions. And so for them to be like, oh, Maya, I'm sorry, can I have a picture, please? Like, I love to me, that literally blew my mind, because for me, it's like, I'll go make something, but when you post on social media, it's like, okay, I posted it, I might see it got
right
likes, or my podcast, like it might have 3 million views. To me, it's like, oh wow, 3 million, okay, that's cool. But you have to physically think about, like, imagine if 3 million people watched me play this for you. It hits different then. So just to be there, and I'm from Chicago, I don't live in New York. This was like my second trip to New York. So to go to the Bronx and these kids know me and want a picture with me, and like they actually, it wasn't like, oh, you work for Overtime, I want a picture. Like they're like, oh no, like you're Overtime Maya. I saw you the other day about X, Y, and Z. Can I have a picture? It's literally mind-boggling, because for me, I know I'm Maya, like I'm myself, but to them, no, you actually know my brand, you understand it. Some of them were following me already, and I'm like, whoa, this is crazy, because I don't see myself like the out of body experience to know who they just met and like what they saw, if that makes sense.
Right. And like I said, love your podcast. I love the work that you're doing as well. And I really want to touch on this before we got to the end of the interview, because I just looked at the time and we have been talking for a minute, but I love the conversation. This is great. But people that didn't know, you're also a published author, right? You've co-written a children's book, PJ Chi-Town. Love the name, because Chi-Town, Chicago, obviously.
Yeah.
What was it like getting that book published and working with your family and working on that project together?
So that book, I believe it came out when I was like 19. Like it was maybe my freshman year of college. But yeah, no, that process, it was really fun. My mom is an author already. Like that's her main thing. She loves to write. So it was really fun for me to be able to work with my mom. Growing up, she would take me to different like Essence Festival and like different NABJ chapter stuff, just local festivals, and I would help her set up her table and sell her books and meet all these different people. So it was just a wild experience to now it's like, oh, we're working together. I'm writing this and you're editing, and then we find an illustrator and then we publish it. That whole process, it was really cool. And I think it was even better to be able to do it with my mom, because she can like hold my hand throughout the process. So it wasn't stressful at all. Like a lot of people like, oh my God, this is so stressful. For me, it was smooth because she's done it. She knows how to do it.
Right.
So that was cool. And then for us to write about something so close to my heart, like the book is about my nephew.
Right.
I don't know how old he was at the time, but I read the book to him a couple of times. So he might have been maybe like 4 or 5. So he was just learning to read. And so I would like read it to him, and that's crazy for him. It's like, oh, this is actually me.
Right.
So that was our big thing, is that we wanted to have a children's book where you look at it, you can see a little black boy, and you can imagine yourself in these sorts of situations. And then being from Chicago, it's like, we gotta throw some So yes, I am a published author. I don't know if I would do a book again, but it was fun to be able to do that with my mom, because that was big for her, I would say.
Right.
She loved that, to be able to work with one of her kids. Because my mom has always made me write though. Like my whole life, I grew up writing. So if I got in trouble, I would have to write an essay.
Oh, girl, you ain't even gotta say no more, man. Sheesh, man.
Yeah, I had to write an essay about what I did, why it was wrong, why I wouldn't do it again.
Right.
So for her,
and sign it on the bottom, like.
No, she would edit it and give it like, here, go. So for her, it was nice, because I think she was able to see like, wow, all of my hard work that I put into this child, it's worth it. Now we're working together, we're collabing. So it was dope.
No, that's dope. And everyone's watching. You guys could definitely get PJ Chi-Town on Amazon, and also the link in my Reese's bio. Before we head out of here, I definitely want to get into a lightning round because, you know, I want to pick your brain a little bit. We get a little comfortable, we get a little banter, so then I get to ask the real personal anecdotal questions. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be too hard though, but it's just something that whoever's watching gets to know you a little bit better as well.
I'm ready.
So I know you're from Chicago, so it's probably going to be a no-brainer, but I guess second favorite basketball team.
Second favorite, Celtics.
The Celtics. Oh, okay.
I really like the Celtics.
Okay. I'm not gonna lie. I did tell people Jason Tatum was gonna be a problem. They said, "Hey, you're not right," but hey, look at us now, right?
Keep him.
So, but granted, I'm definitely a Jaylen Brown guy. I definitely am more of like the shadow work, you know, behind the scenes, not really the flashy player, still putting up 30 type of guy. So, what are your top 3 favorite athletes?
Of any sport?
Any sport.
Any sport. I have to say Derrick Rose. Just
okay, all right. I mean, he's probably, right. Maybe not in the room listening.
Yeah, he would be mad if I didn't. So I would say Derrick Rose for 1. For 2, Serena Williams.
Right.
I think she's the GOAT of all GOATs.
Right.
Like she's unbelievable, unstoppable, and the stuff she was able to do. If a guy did that in another sport,
right,
he'd be crazy. She doesn't think she deserves. So Serena Williams. And 3rd, that's a hard question. I'm trying to think if I want to do a different sport. 3rd, right now, I like Angel Reese. I do. I really like Angel Reese right now.
Hopefully she stays at LSU. We can get another a run back. But you know, usually how these things go, they're trying to get into the league. So, but hopefully we can.
No. She said she's in no rush. She wants.
Oh, we're staying.
Because she's making millions from NIL deals. She wouldn't make that.
Right.
So she was like, I'm gonna stay and get as much money as I can, as many rings as I can, which I get.
And I'm glad that college players can do that now and get some sort of fruits of their labor, because the media deals that the colleges be making is millions off of them. So definitely glad they can make some money. So in all your traveling for overtime and going to all these different places, I know you went to New York City. Hopefully you got to see the Garden. But what is your favorite sports town?
I would say New York is my favorite sports town, just because. Okay, I'm not biased though, but I would say New York is my favorite sports town, just because when you go to their games, their fans are different. Like
the
they
energy is different.
Act how people act like at United Center or at like Staples. Like New York is different. I had like season tickets for the home game at MSG, so I went to the Knicks game this past season, and every time I went, there was crazy a fight or like crazy trash talking. Like the fans are just so passionate, even though the Knicks aren't. Well, they haven't recently been like a playoff contender. Now they're but it's like, even at a game where we all know they're gonna get blown out, the fans are still going crazy. Pushing the refs out, like so passionate. So for me, that's fun. Like if I was an athlete, I would want to play in New York.
Right. Yeah. They've always said, like, under the Garden lights, it gets different. Like it definitely gets different. So what is a food item that will win you over instantly?
Instantly,
like give it to you. You proposing to the man instantly.
Can it be a meal?
Sure. If you're proposing, why not? We go make it a whole meal.
Seafood boil.
Seafood boil? Oh, you just like my sister. Oh my God.
Yeah, for sure. But like it has to have everything, like the shrimp, the crawfish, like the legs, all that. The little egg, the corn, all that.
And you don't do the utensils. You just go straight into the no bib. Just go right into it.
No, like bib, gloves. But yeah,
you do. Okay.
Yeah.
So last but not least, I love that you're always giving tips. You're always giving advice to those on your Instagram, on your TikTok, all your social media. So this next question will be easy for you. I would love to have 3 lessons that you've learned that you can share to that person watching this interview that is trying to follow their dreams as well.
3 lessons. Okay. Okay. First lesson. But okay, good one. First lesson is to not be intimidated by a job listing. So even if the job listing says you need 5 years of experience and you only have 3, apply for that job. Or if it says like, oh, the recommended skills, even if you only have half of them, apply for that job. Because at the end of the day, what a lot of companies care about is, are you passionate? Do you know sports? Like, well, it doesn't have to be sports in general, but are you passionate about this field? Do you have transferable skills, stuff like that? So I would say, don't be scared to just apply for that job, because the worst thing that can happen is they say no. But the best thing is you can have that interview, you can talk to them, you can explain, oh, I love this and I've done this before, and that, you know, can help your company with blah, 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 and then you can get a job. So don't be intimidated if LinkedIn says you need 10 years and you only have 5, like, go for it.
But should you lie though? Yes, no? No. Got it. Okay. Remember, people, don't lie though if you don't got the skill.
Don't lie. I know people who do that. Don't lie on your resume. That's in tip 2. Do not lie on your resume, because you're gonna get to that job and they're gonna be like, hey, we need you to make this video on Adobe Premiere Pro and then take it over to Illustrator and then Photoshop. Now you don't know how to do it. We don't have time to teach you how to do it because you're supposed to know. So do not lie in life, but also don't lie on your resume. Don't do that. That's bad. I don't like people who do that. Thumbs down. Third tip, you said for someone who is just trying to make it, not in sports, but in life.
Just trying to follow their dreams, or trying to, you know, pursue an endeavor that they may be scared to do or not really sure how to go about doing it.
My third tip, which is gonna sound cliche or corny, but I would say my third tip is to live in the moment and be appreciative of where you are. Because I feel like often we'll be thinking like, oh, I want this next job, Sports Illustrated, right? Forbes, right? Overtime, you know, I want to do the Olympics. You can be so focused on your next thing that you don't appreciate where you are and what you're doing. And so I would say, like, take a minute to stop, smell the flowers, smell the roses, and be happy with where you are. You can always know what else you want, but like, I think it's important to pay attention to what you're doing now and think, okay, well, what can I do at this job to set me up for my next job? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, that's beautiful. And thank you, Maya, for an amazing interview. It was a great conversation. I'm glad we were able to finally do this. Do you have any final words, last words for everyone watching at home and on their phones?
Follow Overtime. It's a cool company. Follow me, Overtime Maya. No, I think final thing is just final thing would be that I'm being interviewed, but anybody can be interviewed. I think everyone has certain talents that are highlighted and that are not. So I think it's good that you have a platform like this, because there are a lot of people where I work in sports. So my podcast is seen by millions of people, but there might be someone else who's doing something as good as I am, and then their thing only gets 50 views, you know, like, I think it's important to pay attention to the smaller creators who don't get as many views, who don't get as many likes, but they're putting their heart into it. So you're one of those people who is creating, keep creating, because one day somebody's going to see it and be like, oh my God, this is so good. Whoa, you have 30 episodes and you did all this yourself. Come work for us. Like, come join us. And then now you have your dream job. So keep creating. Don't pay attention to the numbers. It doesn't matter if you have 50 likes or 50,000. As long as your content is good, that's what matters. Don't get discouraged. Don't pay attention to social media. Social media is not real life. That should have been one of my tips. Social media is real life. So some stuff you see on there, don't pay attention to it. Don't compare yourself to the next person, because they could have bought their followers, bought their views. Like, they could have sent it out. Hey, can you comment on this? They could have told the 100 commenters to comment, versus you're just trying to let yours grow organically. So don't believe social media. Keep doing what you're doing. And
yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And like you said, like, basically, if y'all out there and y'all got a nice little thing going on, DM me, because I need guests. Thank you, Maya Reese, for such an amazing, amazing interview. You guys can follow her at Overtime Maya. That's Maya with 2 A's at the end, 1 before the Y. Overtime is spelled exactly how it sounded. You can watch this interview at the DC Voice and follow me at Kachi.theanalyst. Thank you guys for another amazing interview. You can catch it on Instagram and YouTube. Hey, out of here.